And sometimes I think that those are some of the hardest lessons that I have to learn because my knowledge of God, it can't just be head knowledge. It has to be an intimate knowing. And sometimes you really just you won't know unless you experience him. And sometimes that means you have to put yourself in situations to allow God to show up as God. Because if you just stay in your comfort zone, if you stay in a comfortable place where everything always works out the way you want it to, where your plans always follow through the way you want them to, you'll never experience God as God.
Will my reflection show who I am inside?
Welcome to part two of the series that I'm doing right now called I Ruined My Life Obeying God. And I'm taking you along on a journey that I'm currently still on to obey the instructions that God is giving me concerning my life and what that's actually been like for me. I called it I Ruined My Life Obeying God because it seems like that's literally what is happening. Um, Everything is falling apart, and I think some of you may relate. Like when you finally start to obey the instructions that God is giving you, it's almost like things are getting worse. But in reality, one of the things that God told me is that in order for me to get the life that He always intended for me to have, in order for me to become the person that He actually created me to be, I would have to sow my old life. I would have to sacrifice who I thought I was, who other people said I was, to be who I actually am. And that sometimes things have to be torn completely all the way down in order to be built up properly. And it sounds great. It sounds amazing. But the reality of the process is actually really hard. And to be very honest, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to make these videos. I don't want to talk about the things that I'm experiencing. Um, I half the time don't even want to do the things that God is telling me to do. But on the inside, I do want to be obedient to God, but of course, the undoing, the sacrificing, the dying to my flesh every day, it doesn't feel good. Um, this journey that I'm on, it is very isolating. It can be very lonely. And I thank God that there are certain people that He's placed on my path that have been in similar situations that I'm currently in, and they can speak to the hope that there is a better future, right? That better is coming, that it's not always going to be like this. But sometimes in the middle of it, it doesn't seem like that. In the middle of it, I can lose hope of can I really actually do what it takes to get to where God is showing me, right? And this is just the reality of it. And there's not many people that, I can kind of express some of the feelings that come up, right? Because, there are people who they just want you to be positive all the time, or they really don't understand what you're going through, or they think that, speaking for myself, they think that I'm just being childish, I'm just being immature, that people have it worse, right? People are going through horrible things. What I'm going through is nothing, right? And that may be the truth, but at the same time, I mean, you can't just dismiss what someone is going through just because you feel like someone else has it worse, they still have to go through those things that they're going through, right? And so I've learned sometimes to not say things to people. I don't know if that's really healthy or not, but above all, it has taught me and it's continuing to teach me that I have to go to God first. You know, He's the one that has put me on this path in the first place. He does understand, He does know. And so I don't know why I just said any of that, but I really want to talk to you all about the reality of what I'm experiencing. And I'm going on this journey currently, but I'm taking you guys back to catch you up to my present moment just so that you can understand. And just because this is what God is telling me to do, right? And so hello again. Or hi for the first time if you're new to this channel. Um, we're gonna get into it, but first I just want to say, hey, beautiful souls. This is Reflections with Kai, and I'm Kai. This is a space where we reflect, we heal, and we grow into who God says we are. So, if you feel or if you've been feeling stuck, unseen or unsure of your identity, then you are in the right place, right? So on this channel, we talk about many, many things as led by the Lord. But for this particular episode, I hope it won't take too long. But, last we left off, I was telling you all about the sequence of events that got me to the place where God told me to quit my job without a backup plan. I didn't have savings at the time. I was nearing the end of my lease and had to make a decision of what I was going to do. Now, naturally, I would be very hesitant of renewing a lease because I don't know where my income is going to come from. I had had so many experiences with work. I wasn't willing to just take something for the sake of making money because that type of mindset got me into a predicament where I was really miserable. And it was because I wasn't consulting God about the decisions that I was making for my life. And that was in every aspect. And I started to learn that I couldn't afford to keep doing that. I really had to depend on him for every single thing that I did, every decision that I made. And I wasn't used to that, right? And so now he's calling me deeper. Now I'm starting to hear his voice clearer. And now he's starting to be very detailed about the instructions that he's giving me. And I'm having to learn to obey. And some people may say, like, oh, you just got to do what you got to do and things like that. But I'm telling you, God is very meticulously detailed. When we read the scriptures, we see just how detailed He is about everything. And we think that He allowed us to come into this earth, which is a miracle in and of itself. If you really study and look into the odds of conception and giving birth to a human being, you'd understand just how miraculous it is for you as an individual to be born as you on the exact time and date that you were born. It is not by chance. And so because of that, the Bible says things like the Lord, He knows the plans He has for our lives, right? If you read Psalms 139, where David talks about how God just knew him before He formed him in his mother's womb, like that He wrote out his days in the books in heaven before he was even born to live them out. There is no way that we should live through life not thinking that God doesn't have a say so in the decisions that we're making because He knows who He made us to be. It was very intentional, it was very purposeful. And so He wants us to make decisions that are in alignment with His will for our life, right? And I didn't really understand that. And I'm still understanding that to an extent. But now, I understood enough to know that I should not be making decisions without God. So I have quit this job. I don't have a backup plan. Um, there's nothing on the table for me to make income with at the moment. And so I'm having to trust God with what happens next. And it was a very uncomfortable. And there were a lot of things that came up. Um, Number one, fear of where am I going to get provision for to pay my bills? What's going to happen to me after the fact? Can I really trust God? Did I really hear Him correctly? Doubt and unbelief started to creep in as time passed by and bill due dates started getting closer and closer. And not just bills, but, just having the things that I need. It's like, what, what am I going to do? God, okay, I'm obeying you, but what's the next? And I was really getting an opportunity to see what was in my heart, waiting for the what's next. And what God had me do during that time frame is a lot of prayer and fasting. And what's really interesting is that most of the time I'm thinking I'm praying and fasting about a job, about my future and things like that. But He would be telling me things about other people about ministries that I was connected to, about things that literally had nothing to do with my life. But somehow my bills kept getting paid. And I don't want to make this seem like just a miraculous thing. I don't know how it was happening, but there were different things that took place, right? Number one, um I would have random people start asking me, well, I won't say random people, but people would ask me randomly if I could do things for them, and they would pay me money for it. And these things ranged from cleaning up someone's house to, running errands, to like making flyers, and I mean like really random things. I would have people that God would put me on their hearts, and they would just send me $20 or something for gas, you know. Um, I came across information for a way for me to split my rent into payments so I didn't have to pay it all up front. And somehow I was able to do that. I made an agreement with my leasing office to prorate my rent for that current lease that I was on. And they were saying because of how they prorated it, I couldn't pay it through the portal like I normally would. So I was having to do money orders. But it was fine, but with this like payment breakup thing that I was doing, I was just concerned if I was going to be able to do that because it required going through the leasing office and having the payments done through the portal, which I wasn't doing. But somehow it just worked out. And when they would get the rent amount from the leasing office, it would be less than what I was paying, which did not make sense, right? It didn't make sense at all. But God was in that. Um, I was just stretching the money that I have, and it seemed like it was never enough, but it was always enough. And during this time, I was still so fearful and so anxious. I had to learn that when it came down to trusting God, um, trusting Him, it wasn't just doing what He said to do, but there had to be real peace in my heart and my mind, knowing that if He's telling me to do this, it's for a reason. It's for a reason. And that I had to really know him as Jehovah Jireh. I had to really know him as my provider. And like I would hear those words, but now I finally had an opportunity to know for myself that those words were actually true. And so the scriptures began to come alive that God will supply all of my needs according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. And it took me having to put myself in that situation by being obedient for me to really know that truth, that reality about God. And sometimes I think that those are some of the hardest lessons that I have to learn because my knowledge of God, it can't just be head knowledge. It has to be an intimate knowing. And sometimes you really just you won't know unless you experience him. And sometimes that means you have to put yourself in situations to allow God to show up as God. Because if you just stay in your comfort zone, if you stay in a comfortable place where everything always works out the way you want it to, where your plans always follow through the way you want them to, you'll never experience God as God. And so he has to take you out of your realm of control, your comfort zone, and he has to show you who he really is. And it doesn't feel good and it's hard and it's uncomfortable. And I'm still experiencing that even now. But it's like more and more, he's confirming to me that he is who he says he is. And sometimes, you know how they say you have to see it to believe it. You can't, you hear the word, right? Sometimes you have to see him showing up as who he says he is, El Roy, the God who sees. He sees you when you think you're unseen. He hears you when you think you're unheard and that nobody is paying attention and that nobody cares, right? He's Jehovah Jireh. He provides. He shows up. You know how they say he may not come when you want him, but he'll be there right on time. It may seem frustrating, but when you really begin to understand that this is the truth, you can settle into that truth and have peace. And so these were some of the things that God was showing me by letting me make this decision to quit my job without knowing what was next. And for many people, that, they cared about me, but they were like, what are you doing? Like, you're being reckless, you're being irresponsible. Like, just go out and get a job and do anything, do something, right? And that has been, because I'm still kind of in that place, one of the most difficult places that I've been in, right? Because they don't understand why it's not okay for me to just go out and get any kind of thing to make money. That God was specific about the decisions that he wanted me to make. But up until that point, I didn't even know what was next. But I'm gonna tell you what happened. As I'm experiencing these things, right? And I mean, I'm going month to month, like, God, what my bills, my bills, my bills. And I was just not at rest. I was not at peace. I was really struggling. I was consumed with where my finances gonna come from, because things are already not that great, but now they're getting worse. God, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I started to realize that this goes beyond finances, that the decisions that I was making in my life, like, I had to start being way more intentional about where my life was going. And I realized that, well, God, if you say you know the plans for my life, if you say you've already written out my days, like, if you say before you lay the foundations of the earth, you knew me, you appointed me, then what am I supposed to be doing? Who am I? Where am I going? Right? And I got this, like, I had this resolve in my heart, like, I'm not doing another thing until I understand what your will is for my life. What is your will for my life? Because I'm just out here doing stuff, you know? And yeah, I was at one point, like, I was making money. I was doing all the things that, you would be considered successful by this world by doing or whatever, but it was still empty because I wasn't living out the purpose that God had for me. And so I was like, God, what is going on? I need to know, like, I need you to give me some details. I need to know what I'm here for. I need to know what your intentions are for me. I need to know something, something. And the Lord led me to go on a fast. And now, what I'm about to describe, this is not a prescription. This is not me saying, well, if you do this, then God will reveal his will for your life. Because for different people, it may look different. I don't know. But I will say that I had to get in a position in my heart and in my mind that whatever got revealed to me, I was going to accept it, right? Sometimes I think we ask for things that we're not ready for. We're not ready to receive the answer because we're not going to like what the answer is, right? I didn't know what the answer was going to be. All I did know was that moving forward, I had to live my life the way God wanted me to live my life, because what I was doing before, it wasn't working for me. I needed something more. I knew it. It was something missing. It was just too much of an emptiness that I was experiencing. And I was willing to accept whatever the Lord would show me. And I was so desperate for him to tell me. I said, I'm going on an Esther fast. For those of you who don't know what that is, if you read up on the book of Esther, before she had to present herself to the king on behalf of her people to keep them from being slaughtered, she asked her people to fast with her for 3 days, no food, no water, nothing, and to pray. And so we call that an Esther fast. I had never done one before. I knew people who have done them, and like one person I knew that was close to me, like they couldn't even make it all the way. They were talking about how they were ready to pull their hair out, like they just couldn't take it, they couldn't stand it, right? Um, and so it made me nervous. I was like, baby, who would do that? I'm not doing that ever. Then what do you mean? But I had gotten to this point, I was so desperate to hear God clearly. I was like, I'm doing an Esther fast. I took it to the Lord. He gave me specific dates to do this fast, right? And I went on an Esther fast. And the thing is, for this fast, because I was crying out and I was asking the Lord for answers, but that I needed help. Like I wanted to do this fast and I wanted to actually do it successfully. Like I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to stop short. Like I needed to know what he was saying about my life. So I needed this to work out. And I was asking him for help, for strategy and what to do. And he gave me strategy. Each day I was to focus on something specific. But it was the second day in particular where I was supposed to seek him out with specific questions about my life. And I took these questions to him in detail, asking him, Lord, concerning this, when it came down to me and ministry, who I was, my identity, what he desired for me to do, um, who he had designed me to be. I asked for specifics. When it came down to my body, how was I supposed to steward my body? Like, what was he saying about my body? What was he saying about my finances? What was he saying about my family? What was he saying about every single area of my life? And I'm telling y'all, I was not eating. I was not drinking anything. Nothing. It was a dry, completely dry fast because I was desperate. I was like, I need to know. I can't continue living my life like this. I need to know. I need to know what direction I'm going, and your vision gives direction. And the Bible says, without a vision, the people perish. And I felt like I was perishing. And I got to that second day, and I was spending hours in prayer on the floor, seeking God until I heard Him about each of these areas of my life. And I was writing them down in my journal. And He told me the answers to my questions. He gave me the answers to my questions. Now I'm sure he didn't give me all the details. He didn't give me all the details. And I learned that, especially for me, it's so that I don't just go and run with things and just start doing things like, oh, you told me I was gonna do this. Okay, let me, but I have to walk this out with him. But he gave me the vision. So I'm not walking blind. I have something to hope for. I have direction. I'm not out here wandering around in the dark. But he gave me the answers to my questions. And let me tell you something. When you really know and you understand where God is taking you, your decision making starts getting easier. Now I know if God is saying this concerning my finances, but my finances aren't lining up with what God says, then I know, well, we ain't made it there yet. But this isn't all that there is, because God has spoken. God has given me a word that I can stand on, that I can hold on to. If God is saying this about my marriage and the type of family that I'm going to have, then I know that as certain people, I come across certain men that want to date me or whatever, whatever, I have the word of God to line them up against, to determine if this is something I need to take seriously or not. But you're not going to bamboozle me again. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm taking this before the Lord. This isn't lining up with what God has spoken about my life. So this isn't in alignment with God's will for my life. It has to go. Concerning career, concerning business, concerning ministry, concerning my health, the word, I have a word from God that I can stand on now. So if this doesn't look like what God has said, this isn't it. And the decisions that I have to make, they become way more clear. Life becomes a lot more simple. Now, it may not become easier, but it definitely becomes a lot more simple because I can cut out all of the noise that isn't God. And this is a type of clarity that comes from receiving vision from God. But I had to get to a place where I could really see God in a very surrendered posture. I had to surrender. I had to be willing to accept whatever God said as an answer to my questions, because He made me. He allowed me to be here. And I may not understand it, but if He said it, that I have to believe that it's the truth. And there were many things, I mean, almost everything that He revealed to me, that I was like, what? You want me to do what? You call me to be who? I'm supposed to, what? This is what what? Me? Me? I mean, I can't. God's ways are not like our ways. His thoughts are so much higher than our thoughts. But then at the same time, as much as everything surprised me, it also confirmed, deep in my heart, why I had certain desires, why I had certain longings for things, because it was my spirit knowing why I was here. I just didn't realize it yet. I wasn't conscious to it yet. But I'm gonna tell you, God gave me the vision for my life, and I have to review it often. Not gonna lie, because this is the test of faith. When you live by faith and not by sight, you can't go based off of what you see. You can't go based off of what you are currently experiencing. You can't go based off of what other people are saying about you. Because here's the the thing. When God tells you who you are, you have to be able to cast down what other people say you are, even if those other people include yourself, right? Even the way that I speak about myself and I speak about my life, I have to be very careful of, or I have to end up casting down those words that I've spoken that were in opposition with the word of God. Because if the word of God is true, and if what I'm saying about myself is contrary to the word of God, then what I'm speaking are lies. And I have to cast down those lies, right? The vision that God gave me for my life, his will and his intentions for my life, also revealed to me that the people that I was expecting to know me the best didn't know me at all. I had to believe what God said about me over what other people said about me. People that had watched me grow up, people that had raised me, people that had known me from whatever when. And as I've been, walking as who God created me to be, and they're raising eyebrows and they're questioning and they're saying certain things, I have to decide, am I going to be who God said, or am I going to be who they thought they knew? And it's not easy. I even battle within myself all the time. Like even now, God asked me to do things and I'm like, that's not me. God, I don't like that. That's not me. And I'm not this and I'm not that. And I had to repent for pride, because who am I to tell God what's not me and what is me? Like what? Girl, this is God. This is God I'm talking to. How I'm gonna tell him who I am and who I'm not, what I'm gonna do and what I'm not gonna do. Like that's just silly. You know what I'm saying? But I have to go through this journey, this processing, this maturing of realizing that God knew who I was before he even allowed me to be an idea in my parents' mind, which I wasn't intentional. Many of us aren't intentionally brought into this world, but we're here because God was intentional about us being here. And I used to despise that, to be very real with you. Even as of recently, I've said things like, I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to be born into the family that I was born into. I didn't ask for this life. And I say it and I joke, and I have to be very careful about this. But I'd be like, y'all could have left me where I was. Like, what you bring me here for? You know what I'm saying? Because of just different things that I have experienced and am experiencing. But I have to understand the sovereignty of God. And I have to see past, you know, my little self and what I'm experiencing, and understand that if I am here, if I wake up another day and there's breath in my lungs, that God was very intentional about me being here. It means that the purpose that he's given me to fulfill while I'm here has not been fulfilled. I still have work to do. I still have to show up. And that it's not just about me. And you may have heard this before, that, your life is not about you. It's about so many people that are connected to you. And I think what the enemy loves to do is try to convince you that you don't matter and that people don't care about you, that you don't have impact, that you don't influence anybody. Nobody cares. Your existence is just is menial. It doesn't mean anything. And that's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. But, you know, we have these thoughts and the enemy tries to convince us of this so that we never see just how impactful God intended for us to be. We think that, oh, if I do this little thing, if I smile at this person, if I go speak to them, if I give this person this, if I do this little thing, it doesn't matter. When we have no clue how we are impacting other people by being who God made us to be, by being an expression of Himself. Because when we are the true expression of Him, the way He made us to be, we are showing people glimpses of who God is, where some people may not really experience Him until they come across you. But if you won't be who God made you to be, then what? And so I finally got to this place where I had something to hold on to now. I had some direction. I had something that I could hope in that God had shared with me. And I didn't feel like I was just free falling anymore. And I mean, it changed my life. But what I wouldn't know is that, oh, there was so much that had to be processed within me in order for me to really get to the vision that God showed me. And I don't think I was ready. You know, I said, no matter what, I'm doing it. Even when I don't want to do it, I do it. And I can testify that's the truth. You know, I don't want to do the things that God is calling me to do, but at the same time, I want what He has for me. And I realize that, you know, sometimes when you want something, you got to pay the price for it. It's a price for it. And the things that God showed me are amazing. And because they're so amazing, they come at a high cost. And I have to be willing to pay the price. And that has been the battle for me. This is why I'm on this journey because sometimes I don't want to pay the price. Sometimes it does feel like, no, this is too much. It's too expensive. I can't do that. I can't afford that, God. And every day I have to make the decision. Am I going to do the hard thing? Am I going to do the thing that I've never done before? Am I going to show up in a way that I never have before so that I can get the things I've never had before, so that I can be the person I've never been before, so I can go to places I've never gone before? What do I want more? So I got to this point where I have the vision, right? I'm excited. I know, see, I knew my life, it wasn't just supposed to be this. Like, oh my God, I wasn't crazy. Me wanting these things, it actually meant something. And I'm excited. But then after that fast, and it was amazing, it was an amazing fast. I know, like, I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about God. But after the fast was over, I was still in the same circumstances. I was still left with the same problems. What's going on? Okay. What's next then? Okay. My lease is about to be over. My final rent payment is due. What is going on? And I'm gonna tell y'all, you know, a lot of times I don't understand why things have to happen the way they happen, but I do know that God is very intentional about everything. And I know the type of person that I'm supposed to be, it requires me having to understand many things, but above all, I need to know who God is. And I need to know who I am in God. And so that is like the gist of every lesson that He's teaching me, right? So here I am. I have a vision, right? Things are different. I've never had a vision for my life before. And this vision is from God, right? Because I would come up with my own things. I would do my own things, right? In this particular year, I was a part of a community where I was able to plan my year with God for the first time, right? So I'd done the New Year's resolutions, I'd done the vision boards, I set out goals. I knew how to accomplish goals. I knew how to make a plan. But this time, I wasn't working on my own plan. I wasn't working on my own goals. I was planning my year with God. And whatever he said, that's what I aspired to do. And so this year was the first year. Well, it was the end of 2024 when this happened. So now I'm planning for the year 2025. I was planning my year with God for the first time. And when I tell you the goals that God were giving me, they were super ambitious, honey. Like, I don't think y'all understand. God gives God-sized goals. Sometimes we have big goals. We have goals that we think are impossible. God will really, he'll take you out of the comfort zone. That he will obliterate that comfort zone, baby. The comfort zone nowhere to be found with these type of goals, right? And it's because we have to understand how God is. It's because the way that the purpose that he has for our life is set up, we cannot accomplish it without him. That's why the vision is so big. That's why the thing seems so scary and so impossible because you can't do it with God. It's not possible without God. It's not possible without him. He set it up that way so that we could do it with him, so that we can see exactly who he is and how this is supposed to work with him, not outside of him. And so I have some, I mean, very big, ambitious goals. And I'm like, there's no way this stuff is going to happen. But I wrote it down and I aspired to it. So here I am. I'm at the end of the year, December. January is around the corner. I have one more rent payment. By this time, the Lord has let me know that you will not be renewing your lease. You'll be moving. Now, I didn't go into detail about this, and I might in another video, but the Lord was revealing to me already the city that I was to move to next and to start looking for the apartment that I was going to be moving into another apartment in that particular city and to use a certain service, locating service to find this apartment. And I had been working with someone and I wasn't feeling her at first. I have used several apartments. I felt like I was getting closer and closer to what I was looking for, but none of them quite resonated. But honestly, once I got more detailed about what exactly I was looking for towards the end, and I was letting this person know, like, I really want to start, heading in this direction, they were pretty much telling me, like, well, everything that I believe is the best deal, the best value, all of that's in this particular city, I've showed it to you, right? So, like, it either you need to pick something off of this list or move somewhere else, right? And I was like, no, because I know now I know, no, because God told me, you know what I'm saying? This is what's standing on his word. And I was like, no, this isn't it, right? So the holidays were coming. I was like, I need to take some time. We're gonna revisit this. Now, after Christmas or around Christmas, the same locator tells me, like, hey, so I'm actually not gonna be working with this company anymore, and we're gonna find you a new locator. And I felt something kind of stir in me, like, oh, good. Like, not that I didn't like the girl, but it just wasn't meshing. And I was like, nah, because something about her attitude towards I just wasn't, And I didn't like how, I'm giving her some recommendations. I'm giving her more specifications. I'm asking her to find more listings for me, and she didn't want to do it. So now I felt like personally, God moved her on out the way. This new person that they connected me with immediately sent me a new list of apartments. And on that particular list, before I even looked into it, it just stood out for some reason. The apartments hadn't even been built yet. They were currently in construction. I looked at the website. It literally had every single thing I was looking for in the city God was telling me to move to. I was like, oh, is this it? I went, told the apartment locator and this, I feel like this needs to be on my list. I want to go check this out. Sometime later, the Lord brought me back to that apartment and I was like, is this it? And I'm looking at the prices of the units. I'm like, baby, well, it's more expensive than where I am right now. Like, that's interesting. And so I went, I looked up this apartment again, and the Lord had me look up the name. And what I tell you, because of just different things that were going on at the time, I looked up the meaning of the apartment's name, which I've never done before. I've never been interested in doing that before. I don't know why, but it just, but the thought crossed my mind to do it, and it was so significant. Now, I am hoping one day to make a video where I am in that apartment because right now I'm not. Because what happened was, after he confirmed to me that indeed was the place, I mean, the significance of the name, the significance of the address, I finally got to go visit it once the construction was done. I was like, I think this is it. And the Lord revealed to me because I was like, if I can't move here, well, I don't have no income right now. I don't have a job right now. It's been a few months. You haven't told me, you know, to apply to a particular place. Not only did the Lord tell me I was to change my career and to go into something that I never thought of before, project management, but he told me that that was the place, but I had to make a pit stop first. I was not to move to that apartment next, but I was going to be moving in with my parents. And when I tell you, you have to understand how I grew up. I made a vow that I would never go back. And I'm going to just be real with you. I was like, God, now I know you heard me when I said I'm never going back to that place. What are we talking about? I'm finally out on my own. For the first time, I'm not married. Like I'm finally experiencing what it's like to be living on my own, and I love it. What do you mean go back? What do you mean? I cried. I was like, dude, you can't be serious. This can't be real. There's no way. Why would you have me look and find this apartment and tell me to start? This is another thing. Tell me to start building a new apartment checklist. I didn't know why. This was back in 2023 when he started telling me of the city, told me I would be moving, told me to start building a new apartment checklist. And I was like, wow, I already have everything I need. Baby, it's because he was going to tell me to move back in with my parents. I was going to have to get rid of everything that I owned. He told me to get rid of everything, that I couldn't take anything with me to this place that he was sending me to. And I cried and I cried and I cried because, baby, you don't understand. And you know what? I'm actually going to leave it here because I will go into more detail in the next video about this. He was calling me to move back with my parents. And something that he sent someone to confirm this to me. And what they said is, it's like they had a vision of me being pulled back like an arrow, saying that it looks like God is sending you backwards. But what he's doing is preparing to launch you forward. And now, I know that sounds like a banker. I know that sounds so good. It's the truth. But I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear that. I was like, why do I have to go even lower? Why can't I just keep going forward? Why do I have to go back? And I wasn't prepared to do what God was asking me to do. So I had to make a decision. And I'm going to end it here and we're going to talk more about this next because when I tell you this has been the trial of my life, I'm not kidding. But what I do want to say is that God has been laying a tremendous foundation and it is being done with blood, sweat, and tears. And I'm in the middle of this journey and there are some days where I'm like, why did I do this? Why? What more is left? There's more. You want more? You want more from me? More? What more do I have to give? But there's still something more. More that he wants me to lay down. More that he wants me to give up. And it's so that I can have room to receive. The growth, the blessing, the promotion, it doesn't always look the way we think. God doesn't do things the way we think, but he does do them in the best way for us. And so I just want to leave that with y'all there. I do not feel like I'm qualified to be talking about these things right now, but it is my lived experience, so I can talk about my experience, right? And I think I say that, but at the same time, you know what they say, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And I know that I am called, and I know if many of you are watching this, you are too. And so we have to draw strength from each other. And so I'm just gonna leave this here. If you have questions about where your life is headed, ask God and keep asking. Ask and keep asking. Seek and keep seeking. Knock and keep knocking. There's no way that you continue to draw near to God and he won't draw near to you. That's his word. He will reveal it to you. But I encourage every single one of us to do that, because even though things are hard, because God has revealed his vision for me, it gives me something to hold on to. And it reminds me that this is not the end. This isn't the end. This is what I have for you. This is what I've called you to. So I need you to keep taking steps forward. And so let that be an encouragement to you. And at the same time, I'm encouraging myself all over again because I need it. And I'm going to keep encouraging myself in the Lord until I reach that threshold and I cross over it. And I'm fully walking in everything that God has shown me. And so I hope that this, bless you in some way. Definitely stay connected. Subscribe if you haven't already to, walk with me on this journey, especially if you're on a similar journey. You know, let's encourage one another. And honestly, I really could use encouragement. Um, so if you don't mind sharing, dropping a comment with a little prayer, a little I understand, I'm right there with you, something, baby, I need it. Okay? Because I think this past week I was crashing out. I'm gonna be very honest. I wasn't crashing out on people necessarily, but like in prayer, baby, I was like, God, uh, I need you to see about me, sir, because this, I don't know about this. I don't know. I don't know. And so I can use encouragement, but I will continue forward with the Lord. And I'll catch y'all in the next one. Bye. Be blessed.